Brooklyn last night for just the second time this season. This time it was in Chicago versus the Bulls, and it was a blowout, 138-112. Right now, the team prefers road games because it's the only time when Kyrie Irving can play due to New York City's vaccine mandate. However, there is another option on the table, and our Adrian Wojnarowski says there's now, quote, real optimism within the organization that Kyrie can become a full-time player.
Months evolve between now, get through the All-Star break, into the stretch run of the season and then toward the playoffs, that enough in the world could change that Kyrie Irving could become a full-time player. Again, I think that's real optimism within that organization. Now, very simply, if he got vaccinated, it changes it immediately. But short of that, there's other avenues, including if at some point the Nets are willing to essentially pay a nightly fine, that's ultimately kind of nominal, to have him in the lineup, which would essentially violate the New York City mandate about unvaccinated players performing. The Nets aren't willing to go there now. They have an owner in Joe Tsai who's been very vocal about the need for people to get vaccinated, and the idea, I think, right now of having an unvaccinated player and having the organization essentially paying a fine every night, there's not a stomach for it now.
Okay, Jay Williams and Monica McNutt back with us. And Jay, we talked about the fines at the beginning of the show. I mean, Adrian Wojnarowski calling them nominal. I mean, really, they are nominal. First offense is a warning. Second, $1,000 fine. Third, $2,000 fine. Fourth offense, $5,000. And really, that goes to infinity. So $5,000 would be the max there. So, Jay, would the Nets paying fines for Kyrie be a bad look, or you think it's cool?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's cool, but what I am going to say is that one of the things Woj said, Monica, towards the back end of that is that the Nets may not have a stomach for it now. Operative word, now.
Yeah.
Where are we now? We are in January. We have not even hit an All-Star break yet. But if we get past that point and nothing still has changed, it might be something they could consider. I think they should consider it. And here's what I'm really going to say to a lot of people out there, because I see things all over social media. Well, you're breaking the rules. You're breaking the laws that are in place. Okay, well, there's a fine system that's set up. So I asked, people say, well, New York's all about health and safety protocol. All right, so you get a slap on the wrist for your first time violating that? That's really trying to do everything for the health and safety of people around? Or you get a $1,000 fine for the second time, Monica? That's really trying to help people with the health and safety. This is about money too, right? And it's something that's put in place to help businesses that all fight for it. Let's not try to act like, hey, we're really trying to, if they really want to stop it, you know what? We're going to ask you to get out of business, but they're never going to do that because the billions of dollars that the Nets organization and other Fortune 500, 100 companies bring to the city of New York. So it is feasible to think that way. And the last point, Monica, I have is I still find it outrageous that unvaccinated players, if you're asking about those fines, unvaccinated players can come to Brooklyn and play in their arena. And you're not as worried about the health and safety protocol of players and fans, but you are with the players that just live here. And I think that's BS.
Well, Jay, we know cash rules everything around us, so there's that. I don't necessarily think that visiting players being able to play is BS because the idea behind this is that residents, people that do their daily existence in the city of New York would comply with the vaccination status. Here's where I am. I'm almost indifferent. If Joe Tsai decided this is where I hold the line, I'm not willing to pay an additional fee for my player that doesn't want to be vaccinated, I would understand that. However, if he decided, to your point, we have gotten to the playoffs and whatever the playoff number is, I am going to pay that because of the ability of this group to reach out and touch, literally, a championship in the NBA. I understand that as well. I think as we proceed through this thing, again, the area I do have to give Kyrie his credit is he has never attempted to mislead us. And if he proceeds with whatever the deemed protocol will be for an unvaccinated player, then I'm not sure that we have much to say. And the reality of it is, while I think this is a powerful moment in terms of the Brooklyn Nets holding the line, which I have said on this show a number of times, the reality is that our sports figures, sports organizations are not necessarily the end-all be-all when it comes to the moral conscious, or I don't know if you want to use the word moral when it comes to the vaccination, the belief in science or not in our society. And so we're going to keep watching this. I think we know how talented Kyrie is, and this team is scary with him. They're not bad at all without him. And this is just going to continue to evolve. I do think that ultimately winning will trump all, so it doesn't surprise me if it goes this way, that he will be able to play and they'll just pay the fine.
But Monica, I want to go back to what you said originally about how you didn't think it was BS. So the places in which all the protocols are in place, right, in order for an unvaccinated player to come into Brooklyn and play, those will be the same protocols that you will use for Kyrie on a consistent basis. So that's where I get. So you're saying it's safe for unvaccinated players to come in and play because they're abiding by the protocols that the NBA has in place to keep players safe. But you're saying those same protocols that you could not establish at home to keep players safe wouldn't count? It's not going to give you the same safety? That's where it's confusing to hear how certain cities, especially for programs or businesses like the league who have all these protocols in place for safety, can't understand that.
Well, I think the nuance, though, Jay, is like this isn't an NBA thing. This is a New York thing. You
I understand. Yeah. It's a Chicago thing. It's an LA thing, but it's not the majority of states.
Right. No, and listen, I agree with you. And you look at cities like New York and LA. Well, I agree with you in terms of it being slightly confusing. But you look at cities like New York and LA or the Bay Area that wanted to be leaders, I guess, in mandating vaccinations in terms of big business. This stuff gets in the weeds, Jay, and you and I both have now had COVID and dealt with it. I am not, and the word indifferent is probably not the best word. But I understand the layers in this conversation. I do not take issue with the mandates in New York. And if Josiah, again, decides, all right, here we are, I'm going to pay the fine, as long as Kyrie is proceeding under those protocols that we just talked about, here we are.
Politics as usual.
I mean, personally, we all have friends and family that are not necessarily vaxxed, and we're dealing with that too. So this is just an extension of that.
Get in the comments, like, subscribe, and hit that noti bell, gang. We lit.